Good day and welcome to SCO BRICS Insight, where we talk about the latest news, information and analysis of what's really going on in Russia and the BRICS. Now, my name is Rhod Mackenzie, and today I want to talk about how following the imposition of the so-called sanctions from hell regime by the USA, the EU and the rest of the G7, the headlines in the Western media predicted that Russia's economy would collapse within days, if not then weeks, and then certainly in less than 6 months. However, more than 3 years have passed and the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, has stated that the economic shocks have been mitigated, the financial reserves have been increased, and Russia's trade flow has been adapted and reorientated. So what are the reasons for this? Well, according to the IMF report, the Bank of Russia's proactive approach is commendable. The ban on capital outflow, the flexible ruble exchange and the restrictions on cash currency transactions were all elements of a single-minded system that's ultimately proved to be very successful. Now, Western economic commentators previously labelled these measures as isolationism. But they are now acknowledging that this approach was instrumental in preventing a collapse of Russia's balance of payments and preserving the country's stability in the face of the stringent external restrictions. So the latest report from the IMF contains a not so surprising admission. It states that the restrictive measures against Moscow have not only not led to its destructive consequences that the West had expected, but Russia's substantial gold and foreign exchange reserves, in conjunction with its floating exchange regime, have served to cushion its economy against the external shocks. Now, the report, which assesses the economies of all sorts of different countries in 2024, states that the remaining restrictions on capital movements effectively curbed the outflow of funds and helped maintain a safety cushion despite sanctions. They said, in fact, despite the predictions of imminent reserves depletion, the Russian financial system not only avoided a liquidity crisis, but strengthened its protective instruments and mechanisms. Now, before I continue, I would like to make an appeal. If you like and enjoy my videos, you can help me fund the channel and contribute to its further development. You can do this by making a small donation, which you can do by clicking on the thanks button at the bottom of the video screen, or alternatively clicking on the Buy Me a Coffee link below in the credits. Everybody who donates does get a personal thank you from me, and do keep the comments coming. Love to read them, love to respond to them. I do love to be part of this community. Now, it's interesting to note that contrary to the Western expectations, Russia's stability is influenced by a variety of factors beyond just its financial resources. Now, Fyodor Sidorov, who's a founder of the School of Practical Investment, has said that Russia having an effective economic policy has been instrumental in the country's success, unlike other countries, of course. Now, in his professional opinion, the factor of international reserves in practice turned out to be almost insignificant. Because you have to note that the majority of these reserves, particularly those situated within the G7 nations, are in fact frozen and inaccessible. Consequently, the economic growth in Russia has been supported not so much by its savings, but by the stable and manageable internal mechanisms. Firstly, financial stability was influenced by sensible restrictions on cross-border capital flows, the implementation of timely measures to control foreign exchange transactions, and a partial ban on capital withdrawals, and the introduction of mandatory sale of a portion of export revenues in foreign currencies enabled the maintenance of a stable foreign exchange market under severe pressure. Now, this has led to a significant reduction in volatility, thereby providing economic agents with the opportunity to plan their activities in a relatively predictable environment, the analyst points out. Now, at the same time, the gold and foreign exchange reserves do play a vital role in ensuring the financial stability of any country. I mean, as you'll Tupanukova, who's a lecturer in economic theory at the Synergy University, observes, this provides a degree of economic security and it functions as a financial safety net. It provides a stabilising effect in times of crisis, including external pressures from Western sanctions. Russia's vulnerability to external market fluctuations, changes in global market conditions and restrictions on access to international financing would be exacerbated if it didn't have sufficient reserves of its own. So gold and foreign exchange reserves can help to stabilise the ruble rate, preventing serious market fluctuations. Now, the central bank's access to the reserves is instrumental in its regulating the key economic factors, including inflation, interest rates, credit availability, consumer activity and investment. Now, the gold and foreign exchange reserves are key to ensuring international settlements are stable, including the repayment of the small external debt and the servicing of payments for foreign trade transactions. Now, these are a key consideration in the financing of import of essential goods and addressing the trade balance situation. Now, in addition, it's been demonstrated that the larger the safety cushion, the higher the trust of international investors and creditors in the country. In this case, particularly from the BRICS and China, they are more willing to invest in the development of the national economy. Conversely, a substantial volume of reserves serves as a signal to the market that the country is capable of fulfilling all its financial obligations, even in times of crisis. So Russia continues to demonstrate its global leadership in terms of solid gold and foreign exchange reserves as a low GDP debt ratio. Now, as Mikhail Zeltzer said, who's an analyst at the broker World of Investments, he says, this provides stability and independence from the acute geopolitics and the volatility rates of world central banks. A proportion of the gold and foreign currency reserves currently blocked abroad are not actually that worrisome for Russia because the funds available for operational use in Russia are able to and sufficient to stabilise the macroeconomic parameters in Russia. Conversely, the unfriendly non-residents and speculators are excluded from Russia's normal financial infrastructure, stock markets, exchanges, etc. And these intended to prevent their speculative attacks on Russian assets, including the rubles, and they weren't able to. The IMF analysts also noted the positive role of Russia's current account surplus in the stability of the economy. According to their calculation, it increased to 2.9% of GDP. Now, according to the European Banking Authority, a level of 2.6% of GDP can be considered highly favourable in 2024. So thanks to the stable positive balance of foreign trade, Russia was able to maintain a stable exchange earnings, which was aimed at other things, like maintaining employment and fulfilling government obligations. Now, a surplus when faced with external constraints can actually act as a stabilising factor. As long as the country exports more than it imports like Russia does, it maintains a macroeconomic equilibrium, even with restricted access to international capital markets. Now, Tulpanova's observations indicate that a nation with a balance of payment surplus is better equipped to withstand external challenges. In such cases, investors are more willing to allocate their funds to the economy, given the reduced risk of a financial loss, and a sustainable positive balance demonstrates effective financial management and the ability to make sure they meet obligations, which is crucial for maintaining confidence in the economy on the global stage. Now, it's important to note that all countries aim to achieve a trade balance surplus. However, world economies, particularly the major in the G20, exhibit a deficit, except for Russia and China. Zettler emphasises that Russia has a unique balance where it does earn a lot more than it spends, and it has a positive effect on the national currency exchange rate. I mean, a strong ruble is generally beneficial for reducing devaluation sentiments and inflation expectations. The Bank of Russia, including due to a strong ruble, can, for example, speed up the process of reducing the key interest rate. Now, in addition, economists have observed that a strong ruble does lead to lower prices for a wide range of goods, and that leads to a slowdown in inflation, enhanced purchasing power, and increased confidence among citizens. Now, it's an intriguing paradox that the sanctions that were intended to weaken the Russian economy have actually served to emphasise its inherent strengths. I mean, the IMF has stated that contrary to expectations, Russia's not only avoided a catastrophe, but it has also strengthened its position globally and financially. I mean, this is not due to its financial reserves, because of a significant portion of those that are frozen, but by the effective management of the economy. I mean, the strict control over capital outflow, the mandatory sale of foreign currency, and the suppression of the speculative attacks on the ruble were perceived as rudiments of isolationism. However, these measures have since become the framework of stability. When you take into account the nation's current account surplus and low government debt, it becomes pretty clear that the economy is not only surviving, but thriving, and it's also dictating its rules of the game. Now, this development was obviously unexpected by the Western world, as it was revealed that financial sovereignty is not a merely abstract concept, but a practical operational model. Now, the duration of these restrictions has highlighted Russia's ability to work independently of external influences. So, all your sanctions from hell fail the Western world, and your economies are also in trouble, and Russia's is not. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Also, just click on the thanks button, and see you all again soon. Thank you.